Everyone, it is so great to see you all. Thank you for joining us tonight for our first State Bridges event of 2026 in support of four incredible organizations in North Carolina and Tennessee. We are Southern Strong tonight. I am Sarah Kermy, Executive Director here at Stateswin and Stateswin Action. And I really want to get right to the program because it's going to be such a great one. But first, I'd like to briefly go over tonight's agenda. First, I'm going to give a very quick overview of our State Bridges program. Then I'm going to pass it to Raven Douglas, our head of civic engagement, and she will have our host teams introduce themselves. After that, our partner organizations will introduce themselves, followed by what's going to be, I know, an amazing panel discussion moderated by Raven. She is an amazing moderator. And then there will be some time for questions from the audience. So please feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we will get to as many as we possibly can. And of course, friends, we are here not only to learn from these incredible leaders, but also to support them with our dollars. If you have already given, thank you so much. And if you haven't yet, we still have an opportunity to raise even more tonight. So, for those of you who are new to the State Bridges program, we started it in 2021 to activate our volunteers across the country to fundraise for organizations leading nonpartisan, year-round civic engagement and community organizing efforts. We decided as an organization to engage in this way because we believe in the power of these organizations to expand civic engagement and support traditionally marginalized communities such as women and communities of color in building long-term infrastructure for meaningful public participation. And we know this work is critical. It helps connect individuals to the issues that they care about, fostering ongoing participation in civic life, and deepening folks' understanding of how government and public policy impacts their daily life. And I will say we are extremely proud to have had a tremendous impact during the length of this program. Since launching the State Bridges program, we have raised over $1 million for our partner organizations. And we have provided this boost early in the year when the funds go so much further and can do so much more. So with that, I am going to once again thank you for joining us here tonight and hand it over to Raven so that we can get on with the program because you are in for a real treat. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And as she mentioned, my name is Raven Douglas. I'm our head of civic engagement programs, and I am so excited for you all to be joining our States Win, States Bridges program tonight. We are having a phenomenal conversation with four amazing organizations, two from North Carolina, the Carolina Federation Fund, as well as We Are Down Home. And then two organizations from Tennessee. We are really excited to be joined by the Equity Alliance as well as the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. But before I introduce our phenomenal panel and speakers, I would first like to acknowledge and take a moment for our hosting teams for tonight. We are really excited to be joined by our Stateswin hosting teams in San Francisco, Chicago, MARI. And we also, Portland will be joining us as well today. So if you are one of our host team speakers today, feel free to come on camera, and we will have you all introduce yourselves. I just want to take a moment just to thank all of our host teams for tonight. This event literally would not be possible without you all. If you are one of the host teams and you are watching this webinar, please give us a shout out in the chat to let us know that you are here. I know that Julie has a watch party going on in her house right now, but this phenomenal people power is what's going to keep us moving and the support that we have for these organizations. And so we're so excited for that. So I'm going to have each of the volunteer teams introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves, their team, and why they are passionate about the State Bridges program. So I'm going to first pass it to Nicole, and then we'll have Julie speak, and then Juliet will round us out. So Nicole, go ahead.
Thank you, Raven. And thank you to the HQ team for all you do to make this event happen. There's a lot behind the scenes that just makes this all go so smoothly, and we really appreciate it. My name is Nicole Foland, and I'm on the team with Stateswin San Francisco. We've been organizing since early 2017 when we were all searching for what to do in the wake of the 2016 election. And we are still here with our work being more important than ever. And we couldn't be prouder to be part of this grassroots organization. We are super excited to be supporting in 2026 our state bridges partners, the Carolina Federation Fund, We Are Down Home, Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, and the Equity Alliance. Grassroots organizations like this have been key in moving their states more progressive for many years, and I can't wait to hear about their work on the ground. Last, I want to thank the Stateswin San Francisco district captains, as well as our co-host teams from Chicago, MARI, and Portland Southwest. And now over to our co-host from Chicago, Julie Burwell.
Hi, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to my friends who are all here to learn about these incredible organizations. State Bridges has been an absolutely essential part of our States Win system in the last few years. We've really enjoyed learning about these organizations and also getting inspired from them. We feel really lucky to be supporting these 4 teams tonight. We are all connected to Tennessee and North Carolina in so many ways, whether we went to school there or grew up there or have family there now. So we're all really excited from the North Shore to the South suburbs. We've got the Western suburbs represented in all of 77 Chicago neighborhoods here to root on our organizations and learn from them. And the whole Stateswin team in Chicago is excited to have a really robust year with all kinds of events, including this is our kind of first kickoff event of the year. So we're all thrilled to be here, and I'm excited to pass it on to my friend Juliet.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes, we are thrilled to be here tonight. I'm with the Mass Rhode Island team. I've been with them since 2017. And we have supported the Carolina Federation in the past, and we are delighted to do so again, as well as supporting these other groups tonight. And you know, the country runs on your efforts, these kind of grassroots efforts. By the way, I've never been to North Carolina, but I have been once to Nashville, and sorry, my phone keeps beeping. Stop. I have been once to Nashville, and I must give a shout out to the National Museum of African American Music. It is superb. And I say this as a musician and as a human being. So if you're in Nashville, do not miss it. My job here tonight is to ask you all for money. But before I do, I just want to acknowledge the circumstances that our partners are facing right now. The mission of these groups is, and always has been, empowering people and building up communities. But they are facing a federal regime whose explicit goal is dehumanizing people and tearing down communities. Our partners are really facing a lot of headwinds right now, as we all know. Nevertheless, they persist. Our partners persist and they show up. Here's just one example. Over the past 2 years, there have been 2 absolutely monster storms in the South. There was Hurricane Helene, which cost North Carolina, I think, around $53 billion in damages. And then more recently, there was the storm last month that left hundreds of thousands of Tennesseans without power. And guess who was there on the ground during both these catastrophes? Our partners here tonight. They showed up. They showed up to distribute hundreds of meals. They mustered up hundreds of volunteers who brought food and generators and made wellness calls. These grassroots groups, literally and figuratively, are first responders. And of course, when they're not filling in for FEMA, they are doing all the other work, right? They're reaching thousands of voters and defeating terrible bills in the legislature and training people to participate in local school boards and educating people about Medicaid. They're like Wonder Woman, you know, with the bracelets. And they're providing joyful places to gather because now, more than ever, joy is an act of resistance too. These are life-saving, life-nurturing organizations. So please give as generously to them as you can tonight. If you know someone who'd like to donate but can't afford it, give something in their honor too. We are, I think, just shy of $19,000 already in donations. We can absolutely make it to 20. I bet we can make it to 25 tonight. Yes, we can. I know we can. I really can't think of a smarter or more ethical investment than helping to improve lives and fortify communities, especially right now. And speaking just as somebody from Massachusetts, especially as someone in a quote, safely blue state, where, it is really exciting to be able to turn around and give some of that safety and some of that money to places that need it. So let's put our money where our mouth is and let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet. I literally could not have said it better myself. Thank you for really calling Bear to Arms for the support tonight. And I'm really excited to introduce our panel. So if our phenomenal panelists from our four organizations could come on camera, I would love to introduce you all and have you all talk a little bit about yourselves and your work. So if you could take about 3 minutes just to introduce yourself and your organization's mission, that would be phenomenal. So we're going to start with our North Carolina organizations, with Carolina Federation Fund, Ana De Leon, and then I will pass it next to Dreama Caldwell at We Are Down Home.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anna De Leon, Development Director at the Carolina Federation Fund. I am joining you tonight from Greensboro, North Carolina. The Carolina Federation Fund is a grassroots, independent political organization working to build a new civic majority in our state, one that's rooted in belonging and strong enough to govern. At the end of the day, we're trying to build a durable, multiracial governing power in North Carolina, power that actually grows out of organized working class communities and stays accountable to them. We organize primarily in working class Black and brown neighborhoods in our state's largest urban metro areas. We currently have chapters in Forsyth, Guilford, Durham, and New Hanover, and we'll be launching Mecklenburg County in the coming months. What people tend to know about us is that we are committed to leadership development and our year-round base building. We're not an organization that shows up only during election cycles. Most of our work happens in the in-between, building relationships, developing leaders, helping people make sense of how decisions get made and how they can influence those decisions together. We bring new people into action, especially folks who may not have seen themselves as political before, and we invest in them for the long haul. That means supporting leaders who can build teams, navigate disagreement, stay grounded through wins and losses, and keep organizing. We believe durable power isn't built through one big moment. It's built through infrastructure, through trust, through people seeing themselves as part of something larger than any one campaign. In a time when democracy feels fragile for a lot of people in North Carolina, that long-term work, steady, relational, and rooted in working class communities across race is what we think will actually make it durable. Thanks so much for having me on tonight.
Thank you so much, Anna, and I will pass it next to you, Dreama.
Hi, good evening. We are down home. We build in local communities by just going door to door in neighborhoods and small towns across North Carolina. We are just curious and open to have earnest conversation with neighbors, asking them to help us identify what issues matter the most to them across North Carolina. We believe that civic engagement must be ongoing. Over the past couple of election cycles here in North Carolina, we've seen meaningful shifts in election participation. The path forward, it centers on nonpartisan civic education and expanding access to participation, deepening long-term community leadership and development. Last year, our theme was simple and it was bold. We choose to lead. In a time when working class communities across North Carolina are getting squeezed from every direction, we choose to lead. We didn't fold, we organized. We are Down Home's member leaders. They stepped in the gap and experienced meaningful shifts towards the communities that they need. With structure, with leadership, and with strategies, they sharpen their organizing skills asking their local communities budgets for things that their community need, like fully funded schools, public pools and parks, just minimum housing codes, not abstract policies, not culture wars, just material improvements in people's lives. And so, as we brought leaders across the state together, we partnered with partners like Carolina Federation to connect our fights and sharpen our strategy. And we supported 19 campaigns across the state, things that help to make changes for working class families across North Carolina, making sure that it is included for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dreama and Anna, for sharing more about your organizations. Next, I will pass it to Lisa. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about TIRRC's work?
Yes, hi, I'm Lisa, and I'm based in Nashville with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. I moved to Nashville when I was 17 from Guatemala after my family was seeking safety from targeted violence. And I remember moving to Nashville in 2001 and thinking, I don't fit in here. I don't see other people who look like me. This is not my community. I don't feel at home. And so I left. I went and lived in other parts of the country and the world, and I came back in 2015 and I found TIRRC. And since I found TIRRC, it has been the most transformative experience for me. It really has created a community where everyone can feel like they belong and has really built power, even from an incredibly hostile environment for immigrants and refugees in Tennessee and in this moment in history. And so we organize folks who are directly impacted to join us in the work, to be advocates, to shape our campaigns, to stand up for their rights in all different kinds of ways all across the state. And while we're often approaching the work from a defensive posture because there's so much anti-immigrant hate and legislation that comes from our state legislature and our local governments, our communities have really been able to build a strong base and a lot of support and building across Black and Brown solidarity. And so we have, the Equity Alliance here, which is our Black power building group, and we work together to bring our communities to understand root causes and fight for a state where all of us can feel at home. And so we've been around for almost 25 years, and we are right now in the fight of our lives right in this moment. But we are encouraged by the amount of folks who are coming out from all walks of life, standing up for immigrant communities, but also for our democracy in this moment.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And then next, I will pass it to Jessica Williams with the Equity Alliance. Jessica, thank you so much for jumping in a moment's notice and showing up. But if you could just take a couple minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and the Equity Alliance's work, we would love that.
Yes, my name is Jess Williams. I am the Director of Culture and Strategy with the Equity Alliance. I have been with the Equity Alliance for 5 years this year. So that is almost half the time that the Equity Alliance has been around. The Equity Alliance is an organization that is 10 years old, and we were founded in 2016 on the heels of He Who Remained Nameless, his last presidential combustion is like what I like to call it. And we were founded for a multitude of different reasons, whether it be around education, criminal justice reform, and a lot of other things. But a culmination of what that is for us is the Equity Alliance is Tennessee's largest Black-led power building organization. Our mission is to unapologetically build independent Black political, cultural, and economic power. We find the best way that we're able to do that and make the biggest impact is by educating and organizing Black people to take action around the issues that empower that not only empower their lives but also impact their daily lives. We center radical joy and collective well-being as a means of being able to just meet our people where they are and empower them to be able to work ahead. Our work is steeped in cultural relevancy and fluency, and we use that to make intimate connections with folks between and make those connections between what's happening in everyday life and the policies that are being passed around us. We tell our folks that everything about us is tied to a policy, from the way we wear our hair, the clothes that are on our backs, the schools that our children are able to go to, and even the businesses that are in our neighborhoods. Everything about us is tied to a policy. So it is the best for us to be able to have this self-determination around the policies that are being passed in our communities. We're not just responding to injustice, we're engineering systems that create a clear inside outside multi-entity multi-strategy vision. The Equity Alliance is a multi-entity organization. So while we do a lot of we do our community organizing and voter registration and voter empowerment, we have other systems in where we're able to empower our pipeline. Our mission, what we say is that we also need, while we have a pipeline that has to sustain the movement also has to sustain the pipeline. We operate across four different regions in Tennessee: Davidson County, Shelby County, Rutherford County, and also Montgomery County, the fastest growing counties in the state. We're rooted in community organizing and cultural strategy, and we're building a real infrastructure that lasts across Black, Brown, solidarity with Lisa and TIRRC and with our other partners across the aisle. So the Equity Alliance is not only just here as a means of being able to be the cool kids of organizing, as we say that we are those folks who are taking not only Black people, but our allies into the next nexus.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for kicking us off in this conversation. I wanted to mention to folks in the audience, please drop your questions in the chat as you have them throughout the conversation. I will try to integrate them into our panel. So drop them as soon as you have them, and we will do our best to answer them. So Anna, I would love to start off with you. Can you just kind of like level set us and let us know like what's happening in North Carolina right now? What are your organization's top priorities for this year? And specifically, how do those issues intersect with what's happening at the state legislature?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. When I think about what's going on in North Carolina, a few things come to mind. One is fair maps and voting rights. 84% of North Carolinians say they want fair maps, but we're living under really extreme gerrymandering. That disconnect erodes trust. It breeds cynicism. People feel like their voices don't translate into representation. Second, I'm thinking about public education. North Carolina is last in the country in education funding as a percentage of state wealth, and we're also one of the fastest growing states in the nation. That shows up in overcrowded classrooms, underpaid teachers who are leaving their jobs. At the same time, our corporate tax rate is heading from 2%, where it is now, to zero by 2030. So we're draining public revenue while schools are already underfunded. And people are feeling that contradiction. And third, what I'd say that like organizers are thinking about right now and what we're grappling with is that we are in what is a civic engagement crisis. People aren't apathetic. I want to make that clear. They're actually very passionate when we talk to them on the doors or in meetings, but they're exhausted. They're working multiple jobs, navigating rising costs, and watching public institutions feel less reliable. So when we tell people to vote or show up, the question underneath it is, and it's a fair question to ask, is does it actually change anything? For base building organizations like the Carolina Federation, the work is rebuilding civic belief alongside fighting for material improvements. Our theory of change is simple. When working people come together, win real victories, and see their lives improve, they begin to believe participation matters and that civic engagement is worth their time. We've seen that through local budget fights when our chapter members have won tens of millions of dollars in eviction prevention. They kept public jobs like nurses and teachers off the chopping block. They've secured guaranteed income for formerly incarcerated neighbors. When people win together, they grow as leaders, and that changes what feels politically possible. So when you ask me how the state legislature can improve people's lives and ensure a strong democracy, That's actually a really concrete question. That means that people can have a say in what state legislature looks like. They can enact independent redistricting so communities choose their representatives. They can fully fund public education as core infrastructure. They can protect Medicaid and public health. And they can prioritize public goods over continued corporate tax elimination. When districts are fair, representation is accountable. When public institutions are funded, families stabilize. And when people see their organizing shape outcomes, participation becomes normal. It's not abstract. It's not this thing that we see somehow in other countries, but not here. So that's how you strengthen democracy. You create buy-in by making it work materially in people's lives first.
I mean, that's spot on. Imagine if we just prioritize working families and people over corporations, how much better this country would be. And Jess, I kind of want to pass the same question to you about Tennessee. So, can you set the stage for what's happening right now in Tennessee? What are some of the top issues for your organization in 2026 and beyond? And how can the state legislator improve people's lives and ensure a strong democracy?
Yeah, so this year, the Equity Alliance's top priorities are housing, childcare, powering economic justice are our priorities. What that looks like for us is ensuring that we have equitable childcare in Montgomery County, we have food security in Shelby County, and that we are growing the amount of Black homeowners in Davidson County. For us right now, we're seeing that as when we talk about home ownership, Black folks are being, and just Tennesseans in general, are being pushed out of Nashville more and more every day because of affordability. Not just because of affordability, because of eminent domain, because of redistricting and folks wanting to move around to be where they need to be. School districts are vastly being changed right now. There is a new bill that is to take over the Memphis School Board. There's a new bill that challenges Plyler again this legislative session after, of course, TIRRC and our coalition worked last year to be able to shoot down that bill. Now there's another one. There's also a bill that says that women who get an abortion in Tennessee seeking the health care that they deserve, that they need, that they'll be charged with the death penalty. And doctors and husbands who also suggested they will be charged with the death penalty. So to lay the landscape, that's what we're looking at. The most harmful bills that you see enacted across the country, they start in Tennessee. Whether they pass or whether they die, they start in Tennessee and then they spread like wildfires across the state. They've been using Tennessee as a testing ground for not only what Elon Musk is doing with the terrible tunnel that he has in Nashville, but also what he's doing with data centers in Memphis, Tennessee, in South Memphis. And so to lay the landscape, that is exactly what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with overlapping crises, whether it be childcare, whether it be environmental justice, whether it be affordability. We're dealing with overlapping crises. And what folks can do right now to ensure that we're able to keep going is, number one, support our movements and support our missions, but also at the same time be a sounding board for us and being not just supporting the mission, but be a part of those missions as well.
Nope, that's spot on. I recently wrote a Substack for our States Win Substack. You all should subscribe, but it's about how in these rapid response moments, what we don't see is the years of building towards these moments, right? And the need for this investment. And you're exactly right, right? Every policy today is intersecting with folks' lives across all races, across all demographics, across all income. And so this is exactly why we are having this event tonight, right? Because we know that the flashy moments we might see in the news are impacting people at all fronts every single day. And so I want to come back to that. But Dreama, I wanted to pass a question to you. So over the past few election cycles, North Carolina has seen significant shifts in constituent engagement and participation. So given your experience mobilizing communities, how do we continue to increase that civic engagement? How do we continue to influence how state legislators function and respond to constituent needs? And then how do we just continue to ensure that long-term representation across the state?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to know is that civic engagement has to be ongoing and it has to be nonpartisan. Engagement is most sustainable when it's like rooted in a year-round community education rather than this cycle to cycle mobilization that we've done in the past. Our organizations play a critical role because we provide clear, factual information about how the state government functions and how policies affect life and how residents can engage. And so, you know, helping them understand decisions around budgets and education, healthcare, housing, those things directly affect families. And then access to inclusion, it must remain central. Um, Ensuring equitable access to civic participation, it reduces the practical barriers. And that means that we need to provide nonpartisan voter education and registration assistance. I think that our organizations are positioned well because we're trusted messengers in our communities that are historically underrepresented. I think offering things like translation, transportation, childcare at public meetings, and just sharing clear information about how to contact elected officials, how to provide testimony about what's happening to them, and hosting forums that allow community members to talk and ask questions so that they can understand. And then the last thing is that engagement really does extend beyond voting. While we know voter participation is essential, long-term representation depends on sustained constituent engagement. And that means like educating our communities how to follow what's happening in their local communities and local governments, and helping them to prepare public comments, supporting community members to attend local meetings, and training folks in our hard skills, learning advocacy skills, how to tell our stories, how to share and read data and policy research. This is the type of infrastructure that will help to ensure that our elected officials hear from the broad sector of the communities, which we know working class people really are the supermajorities.
Thank you. That's awesome. And we got a question from the audience. So I'm going to back up really quickly to Anna. Obviously, we all know that 2030 and redistricting is right around the corner. The Supreme Court is hearing a case that could potentially gut the VRA. And so someone asked about like independent redistricting and what an independent redistricting commission is. Could you just quickly explain to the audience, Anna, what that looks like and how like fair representation can actually show up in the state?
Yeah, I think it moves back to the Fair Voting Act, which is looking to remove the power of like drawing the maps from politicians. And specifically in North Carolina, it's the politicians who are in office in power in that moment who get to draw those maps. So it's removing that power from those politicians to independent citizen commissions that are made up of Republican, Democrat, and unaffiliated voters, so that you are taking that power away from the politicians and putting it in the hands of people. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat too about that's a good resource, I think, too, to about fair maps.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And coming into my next question is for Lisa at TIRRC. So coming into this conversation, I wanted to talk about kind of like the obvious crackdown on immigration enforcement that we have seen across the country. But you informed me just today that there's actually a hearing in the Tennessee state legislature around keeping immigrant children out of education. And so as we are seeing, again, as Jess mentioned, as we are seeing so many threats on so many fronts, one, can you kind of talk about from the immigration perspective what is happening in the state right now? But can you also talk about y'all's work? How are you educating communities? How are you building trust? How are you ensuring that families feel supported and protected in such a moment where, a lot of families are being attacked?
Yeah, so last year was a year where the state legislature brought a bill to target Plyler versus Doe, which is a Supreme Court case that guarantees every child, regardless of their immigration status, can access free public schools. Our coalition came together across race, class, across Tennessee to stand up for every child's right to an education. The Equity Alliance was really involved. We had teachers really involved. We had school boards and superintendents and small business owners, and of course, our own communities who were the center of that fight. And I remember when I came to our communities, it was in January, right after Trump had been elected and was about to be inaugurated. And I said to them, there's no way we're going to stop this bill. Like, there's no way. It's being sponsored by Republican leadership. And our immigrant community said, we're going to fight like hell. And sorry, I'm just kidding. And even though it was so risky to be out in public, they showed up at the legislature, unafraid to fight for their children's right to an education. Sorry, it's been a really hard day. And we defeated that bill last year. But because of our efforts and the power that we built, they brought in new players. And now Stephen Miller is working directly with our state legislature to make Tennessee a testing ground for the rest of the country. And they've introduced 40 bills aimed at making Tennessee the most hostile state for immigrant communities. Stephen Miller is on weekly phone calls with Republican leadership on these bills, trying to orchestrate his darkest dreams for this country. And while we're looking at situations in Minneapolis and Chicago and LA, which are awful and horrifying, we have to realize that their plan is actually much deeper and structural. They are trying to take over our local government, our state government, and turn it into a mass immigration enforcement apparatus and a state police. And so a lot of the bills that are introduced are not just aimed at targeting immigrant children. Sorry, every time I talk about the children's bill, I get teary-eyed. But it's actually aimed at shielding our local and state law enforcement and their operations with immigration enforcement. And all of this is being done on the backdrop of the fact that we just went through a historic winter storm where half of Nashville didn't have power for over a week. We are not building climate resilient communities. We are not responding equitably to recovery. And instead, our state legislature is spending 4 months just targeting immigrant communities instead of addressing the real needs of Tennesseans, like ending the grocery tax, building resilient communities to climate justice, expanding rural hospitals, fully funding our public schools. And so we are working to ensure that not only our communities and our base who are with us, but that we're persuading people into our movement and helping people connect the dots. The political education in this moment is so critical for people to understand how their self-interest is tied to immigrant communities, because immigrant communities are the tip of the spear and they're being used to line the pockets of billionaires and corporations. And we need to help, we need working class folks to understand that. Because of the trust that we have built in our communities through things like responding to the winter storm, where we did wellness checks alongside the Equity Alliance, TIRRC reached 20,000 immigrant communities. We provided heaters to those who had power. We helped house over 250 people in hotels so they wouldn't freeze to death in their homes. And one of the comments that really stood out to me from one of our Somali community members was, you all were with us through the elections. You were with us through what happened in Minneapolis, and now you're with us through this winter storm. And that's why it's so important that you have groups like ours that are building base, that are doing power building and engaging civically, also responding to the material needs of our communities, especially when our government is failing and refusing to meet the moment. And so that's the work that we do. We're once again getting ready to fight all of these bills. They were just calendared next week, the two bills to target Plyler versus Doe. The Heritage Foundation nationally has really ramped up their attack. So Idaho and West Virginia have these similar bills. And we know that this fight is not just about kids in Tennessee, it's about every child's right to an education, because we also know that they're not going to stop at immigrant children. And their ultimate goal is to overturn Brown versus Board of Education. And so we need to all be united in this fight and stand up for every child's access to education. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to stop it this time. I was glad to be proven wrong last year, but again, there's new players, but we're going to use this moment to organize, to bring more people into our movement. And that's one thing about the South that you have to understand is we have to redefine our victories. It's not just about what you can win in terms of a policy. It's actually about how many leaders you're bringing in. How are you building new infrastructure? Are you able to control a narrative? And so all of those things are building up for the long-term change that we need to see in the South. And I'll just say also that the fight for our multiracial democracy began in the South. It's being waged in the South, and it's going to be fulfilled in the South. And so I love that you all have Southern groups represented here, because even if, you know, well, I can't say this from a nonpartisan perspective, but if we want to be sure that the whole country is able to enjoy, the promises that we've made, we have to be sure that Southern states are coming alongside in that fulfillment.
Yeah, first of all, so many hearts and love from you, from me to you, from the chat to you. Yes, so beautifully said. And so many, everything that you said deeply resonated with me. But some of the things that really pulled out is like, one, like some people come to this work because they have no option, right? Like their lives are on the line, their children's lives are on the line, right? And so like they show up every day because it is directly impacting their community. And then the second thing is I'm a native Houstonian, native Texan, and so we share a lot, unfortunately, in policy that is passed. And it takes a lot of resources and money and time and effort to stop really bad bills, right? And as you were saying, redefining victories, that is a really big deal in a state like Tennessee. And so that's again exactly why we are having this event tonight, exactly why we are raising resources early in the year to fight bad bills that are coming up literally next week. And so just thank you for sharing that and bringing this conversation into such a timely, critical moment. And the next question that I have, I would love to pass this to Jess, and then Anna, if you have anything to add around North Carolina, feel free to jump in. But we all know that building change requires more than reacting to a single policy moment. So how is your organization approaching issue-based education and organizing in your state to really help build lasting power and influence over the decisions that impact their lives?
Yeah, so we're not just showing up when it's time for elections, when it's time to just vote. We're in the community doing year-round community organizing, year-round political education, and we're making sure that our people are politicized in a way that they know why we're doing this. When moments of crisis happen, when moments of crisis arise, we're there for them. We understand also that those moments are tied to issues, whether it be climate justice, whether it be childcare, whether it be whatever it is, those moments are tied to issues. And so we use those moments as a way of being able to politicize our people. When the government shut down, we were there with our people, and we expanded our Powering Economic Justice program to include a Feed the Block program where we were giving away not food boxes, not just stuff that people wouldn't eat on a daily basis. We were giving away hot food. So for us, that looks like Princess Hot Chicken, that looks like Slim and Husky's Pizza, that looks like ensuring that our people are going to eat something that is not only healthy and nutritious for them, but it's also something that they're going to eat on a daily basis. It's not about showing up with charity. It's about showing up and giving our people and clothing them in dignity. And so we use those moments to be able to do that. With Winter Storm Fern, we did the same thing. We partnered with we called our people and said, look, we're hearing across the state, across the city, there's over 200,000 people who don't have power. So in hearing that, what we did was we did wellness checks where we knocked on over 20,000 doors. We made over 8,000 phone calls. We gave away over 40 generators to people, generators that were over $1,000, might I add. And so we were able to not only just meet the moment, but in meeting those moments, we were able to talk to our people and have those political conversations and politicize them in a way that we were able to help them understand this is why we're doing this, and this is why we have to stand in the gap. I know you've heard the term of like, if you teach a man to fish, like we're not just like giving them the fish, we're also teaching them to fish. And so we're setting them up and empowering them in a way that they don't have to look to us in the future. We're empowering them so that they have self-determination, not only over what's happening in their lives, but over what's happening in their communities. So what that looks like in practice for us is not just doing that in times of crisis or in times of turmoil. That also looks like us just building rapport in the community, with us having Harambe House happy happy hour once a month across the state in 4 regions where we're just chilling and inviting people, come and have a drink with us, come and build community with us. And we're inviting our people in and saying, hey, if you have something, you have a need, we're having community meetings once a month across the state where we're empowering our people to help us build policies that they want to see. It's not just about being the source or being the light. It's about being I say that this work is hard work, but it's also hard work. I say that this work is Psalms 33:25 work. Psalms 33:25, for those who don't know, is our God loves righteousness and justice. This work is righteousness. This work is justice. And the last thing that I will leave you and say is y'all got me a little fired up, just a little bit. The South definitely has something to say, but what they did not count on the South saying is that it will look like the people in this room, the people that are talking here, Black, brown, working class people that are saying no more, that are saying this is ours and you can't have it. From Nashville to North Carolina, from Nashville to all the way to California, all the way to New York. You can't have our country. It's ours and it's ours for the taking. You can't.
Anna, you have anything to add?
Yeah, that's first of all, that was really, really powerful. Second
Yeah.
of all, I wanted to add kind of onto what Lisa was saying earlier. We are in these like very precarious times. These times are very, very crisis oriented, and it's a really amazing opportunity for political education. Like right now, we're able in North Carolina to, across our 4 chapters, focus on public education as opposed to having each chapter develop their own issue campaigns and kind of have to start from scratch over and over again. We're experimenting with just having all the chapters working on public education because honestly, it's like the through line to everything. It's like the intersection of everything. Housing instability shows up in school attendance. Low wages show up in like how many parents can show up to PTA meetings. Healthcare access shows up in whether a child can focus in class. Immigration policy shows up in whether 100,000 kids stay home because their families are afraid, as happened in Mecklenburg County when ICE came to town. This is an opportunity to really speak to so many different issues through an issue campaign like public education, where you're able to talk about like wealth transfer in a way that otherwise would be more difficult if conditions were different. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I don't know, like as the kids say, clock it, Jess. But also too, what I hear too is like there is no political organizing without community care, right? And so we have to continue to show up for our communities every day outside of election cycles, and invest in that work. Before I get into my last couple of questions, I just want to remind everyone that this is a fundraiser. I'm getting fundraising updates out of the wazoo. We have raised almost $10,000 in the 47 minutes that we have been sitting here. So help us push past that goal, get over that hump. Your donations are tax deductible. You can give via ActBlue, check, donor advised fund, trust. We will take it all. Let us know. Continue to give as we to support these organizations as we continue to have this conversation. And Dreama, I want to pass the next question to you. Let's talk about rural organizing. So as I was having conversation with you all in your organization, I believe that I was told that North Carolina is actually a mostly rural state, right? I believe almost 80% of the state is actually rural. So, and that is directly what y'all's work does in the communities that you all serve. So, can you explain why rural organizing is essential to building a representative government in the state? And then how do you approach issue-based organizing in these areas in a way that reflects their local values and their lived experiences?
Yeah, I just want to shout out my comrades who are like lighting up this webinar. And W.E.B. Du Bois says, "As the South goes, so does the nation." But rural organizing is essential here in North Carolina. There isn't a pathway to any kind of victory without our rural neighbors. When 80 out of 100 counties here are rural, that means, like I said early, they really do shape the majorities. And so rural communities are often the very first to face structural underinvestment, having rural hospitals closures, places that still don't have broadband, school funding inequalities, high utility costs, housing shortages, limited transportation options. These are not just abstract policies. They really are like our folks' daily lives. And when the communities are organized, the realities remain invisible. Those realities remain invisible in policy conversation. Rural residents frequently feel overlooked, they feel mischaracterized, and representative government requires more than just counting votes. It requires listening. It requires building relationships. We like to say relationships cannot be microwaved, and leadership development in every region of the state. Sustainable civic infrastructure, it can't just be centered in the urban areas of Charlotte and Raleigh. Democracy has to work in the hills and the hollers and the mountains, just like it does in those places. We approach issue-based campaigning in rural communities. We start by listening, not by messaging. We ask them, what keeps you up at night? What do you need? By identifying the issues, that helps us to have these kitchen table, front porch conversations, and one-on-one meetings. Our agenda is not imported in, it is really shaped by what the residents name as urgent. And then we ground those issues in lived experiences. So rather than leading with a whole bunch of academic and policy language, we focus on the real life impacts. So, for example, what does a hospital closure mean for emergency response time in your team? Uh, how does lack of broadband affect your students or small businesses in your area? And what does rising utility costs mean for seniors in your community on fixed income? When people see their stories reflected, their engagement becomes authentic and not transactional. We honor their local values and we build local leadership because the long term impact requires identifying and supporting leaders who are already there rooted in those communities. They may be the business owners, the farmers, the preachers, the parents, or even young folks just coming back from college. Leadership development is so important and it ensures that the organizing is not dependent on our staff, but is rooted in the community's capacity. And we provide a clear pathway for participation for all folks. We like to say in rural North Carolina, we can't afford to throw anybody away. And so that means talking to people who don't believe like us, because we know that issues like fully funded schools, and having what you need in your community are not partisan issues. And so we have to find ways to expand the tent and to allow people to come in and talk to us about the things that bother them because we know really no matter how many differences we have, we really do all want the same things.
Yep. Nope. We all want the same things. A lot of these issues are not partisan at all. You're spot on. So in these last 8 minutes, I have two questions that I want everyone to have time to answer. So as we wrap up this fundraiser, would love to hear from each of you in this moment. How can we support your work? And then we'll end on a little bit lighter moment as we close out. But I would love to hear, let's hear from our Tennessee organizations first. Lisa and Jess, if y'all want to go first, and then we will slide to our North Carolina groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously supporting us through your donations is incredible, especially for organizations like TIRRC and the Equity Alliance who work so closely together and recognize that in a place like Tennessee, you have to work in coalition. You have to bring your communities together because the enemy is so much more powerful. But I think beyond that, it's helping to share the news, right? So many of you are commenting that you had no idea that Tennessee was being used in this way or that Stephen Miller was playing in this way in states. And so we have to tell the story to the rest of the country because we have to help people understand how important it is to centralize the South in this fight. So many times people write us off, oh, well, they voted that way, they deserve it, or they're just a bunch of rednecks, or whatever people say about the South. But as Jess said, there is so much power happening here. Our communities are fed up with the way that we've been living and the way that we've been treated. And as Anna said, it's not that people aren't willing to participate. It's that we have to do so much political education in this moment for them to be able to connect the dots and see themselves in this. Senator Charlene Oliver, who helped co-found the Equity Alliance, says this all the time. But Tennessee in the South, we're not red states, we're oppressed states. And so we have to make sure that we're resourcing the groups that are helping to dig us out of that oppression.
Thank you, Lisa. We at the Equity Alliance, we say that we build political, cultural, and economic power from the trap house to the White House. And we use that as like a rallying cry, right? But it's also our approach to being able to like achieve our goals in while centering joy and wellness and being able to build self-sufficient communities. And while we know that Tennessee isn't a textbook battleground state, just like Lisa said, it's not a textbook battleground state. The infrastructure and the scalability is here and it's ready to act. That makes Tennessee a state on the battleground for democracy. There's a difference. And of course, like I said, one that they don't count on looking like the folks in this room. But to answer the question, the call to action, I think that number one, fund at the speed of crisis. Conditions are urgent right now. So we don't have time for, of course, like bureaucratic delays or performative relationships and things like that. It is time to move from being from transactional to being transformative. Don't just fund a program, invest in people that are building the infrastructure for long-term power with multi-year commitments. Trust Black women, fund Black women, stand beside us. Don't just stand with us. Stand beside us, truly stand beside us. Support cultural organizing and help us to be able to continue to center joy, radical joy. In a place like Tennessee, joy is our form of resistance. And so when we say we're throwing a block party, it's not just a block party. It's a platform, it's protection, and it's political. We're not just using it as a charity or as a means of being able to have fun. It's strategy. And in moments like this require not just strategy, but they also require courage from all of us, not just the people that are on the front lines, but also funders as well.
Awesome. Very well said. Anna and Dreama, how can we support your work right now?
I mean, I would say I would build on just what Jessica said there too, that you need to believe in long-term organizing and base building that is year-round and multi-year and happening uh, across election cycles. Elections are important, don't get me wrong, but we need to be investing in organizations that are doing this like year-round work, knocking on people's doors and talking to them, having 10, 20-minute conversations with folks. For us as an organization, we treat that like a focus group. That's where we like learn what people care about. It's not just this one-way street. We're taking this information in, and I think that's really critical to really understanding what's going on. Is understanding what that long-term organizing is going to be what breaks the cycle of only responding to election crises. And then the last thing I would say is that there's a long history in North Carolina of Black-led organizing, working class organizing, rural organizing. People outside the state can amplify that work and bring their networks into relationship with it and resist the tendency to treat the South as either a lost cause or a charity case.
Yeah, and I think most of my comrades have said most of it, but I just want to say that like also consistent money equals consistent power. And so when people are able to invest monthly, I think one-time gifts are very helpful, but like sustaining multiple monthly gifts are very transformational. It allows our organizations to forecast, it allows us to budget and to build with intentions instead of like crossing our fingers every quarter that we'll have what we need. And I think that if people have capacity, becoming monthly sustainers of this community or our communities is very helpful. It just helps us to know where we're headed. We can train our leaders. We're just not reacting to emergencies. We can be very strategic when we know that we have sustained investments.
Awesome. And so I'm still going to give our fundraising update, but rapid response in the last 2 minutes of this conversation. As we close, we always end with this conversation with all of our panels. Would love to know what is bringing you hope or bringing you joy in this moment. So I'll go in reverse order. Dreama, if you want to kick us off, and then we'll pass it to Anna.
Yeah, what's bringing me hope? I just left a boot camp with 160 folks across the state that are fired up, ready to go. They are training, they are ready to take on local budget fights. And it rained on the day we were supposed to have a rally, and they still voted to go. And for 1 hour in ponchos, in umbrellas, they were in a rally demanding that they have the things that they need for their community. So the fact that people keep showing up is what keeps me motivated. Thanks.
So, go ahead, Anna.
And I'm really hopeful about the ways that people are now able to connect the dots between all of the systems in their everyday lives. I think people are recognizing that their local organizing connects to county commission work that connects to state power, and that kind of political education work is just something that's beautiful to see. I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica, and then we'll close out with Lisa.
Just like Anna, seeing people take political education and moving that to being politicized. That is like the biggest thing for me right now. Seeing those aha moments happen of people like making the distinction between tariffs and their Shein packages, and making the distinction between our bundles, and all of those things that are kind of tied to our everyday lives. And then also like the youth right now, like they are coming for everybody. And I'm just like, I'm eating it up. I'm like, yes, I'm clocking tea every day. I'm seeing videos, release the files. I'm seeing all of it. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm eating it up. I'm eating it up. I'm jumping on board with them. I'm creating content with them, doing TikToks and reels and all the things. So make sure y'all follow us at the Equity Alliance. So, and follow me too. So I can keep doing more videos.
I mean, this incredible panel, I was just thinking like we need to go on a road show across the country to talk about the South and what's happening here, and like connecting the dots for people from North Carolina to Tennessee. But also all of you, my team doesn't know what I'm doing right now, and they just texted to say our Act Blue is blowing up. So all of you are giving me hope. Thank you so much. And just your encouragement. I felt so silly crying, but you all just made me feel so loved. And it's also just a good reminder that we're all human doing this work, and that it's important to continue to feel things related to this work and not get numb by all of the attacks. So all of you and this incredible panel, thank you so much.
Thank you. And you stole the words right out of my mouth. What gives me hope and joy are the people like you all and the folks at States Win that I get to work with every day. Without further ado, I have our final fundraising update for the night. Thank you to over the 116 attendees that I saw throughout the course of the night. We have raised $30,307 tonight. We've raised over $10,000 just in the past hour. Thank you so much for supporting these organizations. Thank you to our organizations for such a phenomenal, touching conversation. We will be doing this again in exactly 2 weeks at the exact same time, helping to support our organizations in Alaska and Georgia. We hope you can make it, and we hope that you can support. Thank you again to everyone, and we hope that you all have a great night.